Think about any single goal in your life, whether it's losing weight, whether it's committing to workouts, whether it's getting things done, whether it's keeping a practice schedule or succeeding as a professional musician. Did you know that there's one single thing that if you improve this one single thing, you can then expect to succeed at all of those goals? I'm going to tell you what that is in just a moment. Hello and welcome to the Musician Toolkit, episode number 81. My name is David Lane and it is great to be with you once again. I hope all of you are doing well today. I'm releasing this at the beginning of the first week of July 2024. This is a bit of a staycation week for me. I'm not entirely sure exactly what that means other than I'm not doing any teaching nor anything related to my church piano job, and trying to do as little as possible with anything else as far as projects go, which is one reason why episode 82 is also already scheduled and ready to go. It's just a case of the only few places I'd like to go. I have a few favorite Airbnbs, that we've stayed at in the past, and they were all full. Plus, I don't know if you've checked the price of lodging, but just like everything else, it just seems like it's really gone up. So I'm just going to stay around here. Going to do some hiking. Recently got my bicycle out of storage and already took it for a ride this past week. One of the things I've done on 4th of July in the past that I've really enjoyed, and I'm going to do it again, especially since I live in a location where it's very friendly for this type of thing, and that is to go on a long bike ride. Have to double check, but I'm pretty sure I can go on a greenway for probably about 25 miles each way, or one way before I have to, turn around, which, if you're a really trained, avid bicyclist, you'd probably say, well, that's not much. But as a barely hobbyist bicyclist who sometimes lets extreme amount of time go by in between actually getting out the bike, that is more than plenty for me, and it's going to be a bit of a challenge. I'm probably also going to be going hiking as well. A little bit of this is weather dependent. If it's 98 degrees like it was the day before I'm recording this, then I may not go do anything for very long. But if we're talking high 80s, low 90s, I'll probably pack extra water and look forward to having a fun time. So anyways, day trips, hiking, maybe kayaking, biking, that is kind of the theme for this week. I don't know if I'll be able to completely avoid any kind of regular work because there are some projects looming, and even though I got ahead of some of them, they're still there. So part of the challenge for me will be to find that balance, to do a little if it's needed to be done, but put it in a time of the day where it gives me plenty of time to get it done and then go out and play, basically. All right, it may seem like I'm starting this episode out with a lot of small talk, and yes, I am to a point, but I'm also kind of already starting to talk about today's episode. So that's a pretty audacious claim I think I made in the very beginning of this episode. I said it doesn't really matter what you want to accomplish, whether it's eating better for your health or eating to lose weight, running a 5K, running a 10K, running a marathon, getting your website launched, growing your social media audience, mastering a group of difficult pieces for your instrument, getting your composition published, landing a gig, scoring a film. I'm going to be talking about a single thing, as I said. But that one single thing will make a huge difference on every goal I just named and all the ones that I failed to mention. Now, are you absolutely guaranteed to succeed if you develop this one skill that I'm going to talk about? No, there are no guarantees. But this one skill will allow you to take the failed moments, put them aside, and get back in and stay resilient while you keep improving the things that you can control until you do succeed. So what is the one thing, the one skill that if you will take the time to really, really improve and develop, it will greatly, greatly increase your chance of succeeding at every single goal that you have. Well, that skill is the ability to embrace discomfort. Okay, if that's a little anticlimactic, if you were kind of expecting something bigger, stay with me for a while. I want to really just dig into this for a moment. And I think you'll see that I'm right about this. So let me start with an example that's very relevant to me, and that is sticking with a diet. So I kind of ignored it, but last fall, my doctor told me that there are some numbers in my makeup that are kind of heavily influenced by my weight and also like the composition of some of the things I've been eating, i.e. a whole lot of fast food, that had my cholesterol a little high, but the main thing was that it put me into barely, but definitely into pre-diabetic numbers. And I made some half-hearted changes at the time, but nothing that really stuck. But back in April, there was a number on the scale that I just didn't think that I would see. So when I was in high school and in college, I felt for a guy like I was just way undersized, and I really wanted to gain weight. I wanted to be bigger, and I ate prodigious amounts of food, but unfortunately mostly junk food. And my metabolism was just so good back then, I could not gain weight. And, all of the elders in my life all said, well, just wait till you reach a certain age. And I'm nodding, sure, we'll see. I'm probably different. But, as I've realized, and as some of you will realize, you're not really different from most things that your elders will speak of. Probably in my late 20s, definitely by the early 30s, metabolism had normalized, and that was no longer an advantage. So I entered May 1st with a goal of, I need to lose at least 25 pounds, maybe 30 pounds. And actually, that's not entirely correct. I had lost 5 pounds through my kind of half-hearted, not very consistent efforts, but it wasn't going any lower, so I was 20 to 25 pounds overweight. Well, that was going into May 1st, and I'm recording this on the last week of June, and I've lost 10 pounds since then. So I'm very pleased. I didn't think losing 2 pounds a week would be a healthy way to go, but I wanted to try to exceed 1 pound a week, and I've done that. So now there's two things that I'm striving for on this diet, and it's why it has been succeeding for 2 solid months. Both of them are factors, so I know I'm talking about one specific factor, but let me talk about the other factor first. So the one factor is that I made changes to my diet that I knew would be beneficial for me, but ones that I asked myself, would I still be willing to do this 3 years from now? Like, would I do this for 3 solid years without a change? Because I found from past experience, like if you 3 years, if you go 3 years, you've changed everything. Like I used to be very addicted to soda. I couldn't go a day without one, and I usually would have 2 or 3 sodas in a day. And I went nearly 3 years without one. And ever since then, I've never felt the addiction. I've been able to drink it when I want, enjoy it, have one the next day, or go 2 or 3 months without having another one. And it's just never been anything that I've had to have on a regular basis. I mean, not since I got over it. It used to be something I always had to have on a regular basis. So I'll kind of go through, just some of the things that I've decided. I'm not going to list all of the rules that I have, but here are some of the kind of the highlights of the thing. First of all, I instituted a rule by which I have no snacks unless I'm in an emergency situation where I can't eat during a regular meal time, and then snacks kind of become the meal. But it's just 3 meals a day. And I stop eating when I'm full. I don't say I have to eat all that I can right now, so I'm going to, stuff myself. No, as soon as I can honestly say I've had enough, I stop eating. And then I drink only water for the 4 or 5, sometimes 6 hours that I need to go until I get to the next meal. Actually, that's been the only ironclad rule. Now this week, that is the week that I'm recording, I instituted a challenge to myself to only eat what I prepare at home for the entire week, because I am very bad about eating out. And so I wanted to see, 1, if I could do that, and then 2, if that would make a difference. And I've lost more weight this past week than I did probably the 2 or 3 previous weeks combined. So yes, absolutely worked. But my big goal has been eat only during the designated 3 meal times, unless there's a situation where I have to skip a meal, and stop eating when I've had enough. But there's another goal that I gave myself, and I knew that this was going to come in handy because I've actually been thinking about this a lot this year. And that was, I wanted to challenge myself to embrace the discomfort of feeling hungry. Because this is the real reason people have trouble with their diets. They get uncomfortable with it. Now, finding something that you can commit to, and I feel like I can commit to having meals where I don't limit myself, like I don't restrict any kinds of foods, but I have those meals. I stop eating when I'm full. Those are habits that I can continue to practice, and I know that that's going to help a lot. But not snacking does become a problem when you're 5 and 6 hours between meals and you're just having one of those days where I'm just feeling hungry. And now sometimes that is emotional. It's an associative thing. It's like I'm craving food because I've often stopped in a convenience store to get like a bag of chips or some popcorn or, and a soda or something like that. Or I've stopped by a fast food place and, gotten, some fries or something like that at this time of day. And because I've done that so many times, the body will sometimes remind me, hey, you normally do this. And it's not a craving of I need food, but it's my body saying you've gotten some emotional satisfaction from this, and I just want to help you reinforce that. So a lot of times your cravings are not physical. They are emotional. They're mental. They're something other than your body actually needing food. So I prepared myself in advance. How am I going to handle those moments because I've had them before. It wasn't like I was speculating. I knew this is what had derailed me in the past before when I've tried to get better about the way I'm eating. And I knew that what I had to do differently this time, I had to imagine feeling hungry and not just say that I'll get through it, but actually embrace the discomfort. So this is a specific element of the skill. I didn't say that you need to tolerate discomfort. You need to embrace discomfort. And that is to kind of wrap your arms around it and say, this unpleasantness is just a side effect of growth. See, I feel hungry between meals because I'm not snacking. And because I'm not snacking, I am not putting extra calories into my body. And my body eventually will say, okay, if you're going to just ignore this and you're just going to continue to not eat at this moment, then I'm going to start drawing some reserves and burning some of these calories, these excess calories that you have. So whatever you want to do, there is either physically, mentally, or emotionally a point of discomfort that is going to happen. And how you handle that discomfort will affect whether or not you stick with the goal and whether or not you break through any of the obstacles or the barriers that have been keeping you from taking the next step. The main thing is it keeps you around. It keeps you working on the goal. So if you think about working out, there's a physical discomfort to most exercises. And we are creatures of comfort. I don't think I would be stereotyping much to say that if you're listening to this, there's probably something that you just look forward to doing that requires no effort. It might be sitting down and reading. It might be playing a video game. It might be watching a movie, a TV series, a documentary. It might be just listening to music. And this is not an episode where I'm going to say that any of those are bad things at all. But they all are things of comfort. So working out is physically uncomfortable at times, but there's also the mental discomfort of making time for it. It's like when you choose to do something, when you carve out a time in your schedule to do something, you have to remember that you are also choosing not to do something else. So this has been a big thing for me. I've mentioned before, I've been trying to work on a master calendar that I can feel comfortable about, that addresses everything I want to do. And I found it's just very hard to make time for everything I want to do, because choosing something is choosing against something else at a certain point. This is why you need to schedule everything. If you're trying to become a better musician and you're not scheduling your practice time, you're waiting for, just the moments you feel like you're in the mood, that is a recipe for failure. So you have to commit to something, and then you have to be willing to go through the discomfort. Sometimes that discomfort is just, I'm just not in the mood today. So you have to embrace that, and you have to say, I'm going to wrestle with this mood and claim that as a victory, because it is not going to hold me back from doing what I want to do. It's just an uncomfortable moment. And a lot of your discomfort are uncomfortable moments. I don't feel hungry throughout the day. In fact, I probably only feel hungry for, if you add it up, maybe 30 minutes total out of a 24-hour period during the day. Sometimes there's more prolonged discomfort. So I'm going to talk about music here in just a moment. I want to just give you one more set of examples, and I'm just going to talk about some ways that I'm embracing discomfort in my life. So, by the way, a lot of where this comes from, the reason this has been so big is the first book I read this year that of any note was called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. And it was one of the books that I recommended on an earlier episode. And it really is a book that kind of highlights this whole idea that we need to stop being addicted to comfort and actually embrace being uncomfortable. And a lot of times how you embrace discomfort is that you practice it. You actually purposefully put yourself in positions to do that. So like not snacking when you're wanting to graze all the time, that's a way to experience discomfort. Another way that I experience discomfort is that this year I finally decided to say, even though has been hard for me to walk 10,000 steps every day, I was going to actually do it. I told myself 8,000 was fine or 7,000 was fine in the past. And I got through January averaging about 8,600 steps a day for that month, which was an improvement, especially for January. January has always been a notoriously kind of low walking month, between it being cold and just being dark more often than it's light. But I decided, let's see if we can beat that in February. And in February, I walked more than 10,000 steps. And I just check in month by month. I've walked 10,000 steps or more for February, March, April, May, and June. In fact, in May, I averaged 12,000 steps a day, actually 12,200 steps per day. So what I'm saying now is I'm in the summer. It's lighter outside. I do not have any musical theater projects that would take up, 3 or 4 hours of rehearsal each evening. So 12,000 is kind of my minimum goal. It was my minimum goal for June. And I think it's going to be my goal for July, and we'll see how August goes when I get here. The goal for the year is still to average 10,000 or more. Well, that annual number it's nearly 10,750 steps per day for the entire year. And I'm fairly close to 13,000 steps a day for the month of June right now, with just a few days remaining. It's like 12,850 steps per day. So in my mind, I'm raising the discomfort level. It's like, okay, obviously, with my current schedule, with my current physical health, with the weather, I'm having no trouble getting 10,000 steps a day. So that's when I say I want to get 12,000 steps a day. But then I look at that number close to 13, and I'm thinking for July, I want to try to get 13,000 steps in a day. Now, I'm trying to pick a number that I probably won't reach. So I've already reached 12,000. I'm not quite averaging 13,000 full steps a day. So that is kind of what I'm shooting for, because I find it is a little uncomfortable to get 13,000 steps in a day physically, and also making the time to do that. But I try to shoot for that. Now, as we get in and out of summer and into the fall, I am sure I'm going to adjust that goal. But I want to find whatever the number is. It doesn't really matter what the number is. It's the number that's slightly uncomfortable that I want to be my walking goal for as long as I can walk. Some other ways that I practice discomfort, and this, I was reminded of this in the book Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. That is a book, by the way. I've read it 3 times now, and I always tell people it's a book full of ideas that you should definitely read. The author has a very distinct personality that he does not hide in his writing style. And I think for a lot of people it can be very hard to take. So I always recommend it with a grain of salt. It's like maybe if you could find a summary of his ideas, that's probably better. But I'm fine with his personality. I'm able to look past it, and it's talking about anti-fragile. It's building up to the point to where you're resilient to turbulent events. Like one of the health benefits of not eating all the time is that if you're in a situation where you don't have access to food, you're not panicking. If your body is regularly tested through physical activity, you feel more resilient to it. One of the things that he mentioned was, and this is something I've tried to practice for years, but been kind of reminded about it. It's a little simple thing. It's wearing sunglasses. How much benefit sunglasses has with our eyes and the sun is kind of debatable. I don't think there's a lot of conclusive data either way to support that. There might be some benefit. But one thing we do know is that wearing sunglasses actually can affect your sleep schedule because your eyes are thinking it's darker than it really is and producing serotonin a little bit too early. It also it's adjusting your skin's intake of vitamin D. So if you're walking out and you're in and it's sunny, if you can stand it, don't wear sunglasses. So I've taken it one step further in that I try now to wear sunglasses only when I'm driving towards the sun. So if the sun is in my eyes like this, or if it's reflecting off of a car in front of me, if it's really hindering my driving, then I want to wear sunglasses just so it's not so dangerous. But if I just think overall it's kind of bright outside, I just embrace that discomfort. So I never wear sunglasses when I'm just walking around, for example. I put on a hat and I lower it down to keep the sun directly out of my eyes, but otherwise I don't do that. Now, I have heard this, if you don't have dark pupils, if you don't have brown eyes, if you have lighter eyes, like true blue or something like that, there is some strong speculation that you should wear sunglasses more. So anyways, this is not advice on that you should follow to a T. I'm just giving you some examples of what I do. So I walk more than I'm a little comfortable doing. I don't wear sunglasses unless I have to. So I make myself work out 1 to 2 more days per week than I would have previously thought I had time for. I just schedule that time to do that. And when I'm doing it, I try to be more intense most of the time and just again and embrace the parts that are hard about it. So one way you can also embrace discomfort is always be learning something new. Now that might be a new piece in your music, but actually for me, it's learning a new language. Or I can tell you this is something that's it's a future project, but I'm looking into a couple of things I want to get better at that I'm not really good at. One is how to actually use a grill well. I know how to put things on it and make sure that if it was raw when it goes on, it's cooked when it comes off. That's kind of my experience with the grill. I know how to season things and so forth, but how to get things in a certain amount of brown color, or how to cook things so that they're done but not well done. That's something that I want to get better at. And then another thing is I've told people for probably my whole life that I'm not mechanically inclined. The average person would probably do better with a piano in front of them than I do with a drill in my hand. Well, when I think about why that is, there's some point of discomfort with it. And, I probably don't have a lot of natural ability with that. But by the end of the year, I think one of the things that I'm definitely going to be doing is taking up some small woodworking projects and learning to do some things with my hands, because I want to embrace the discomfort of that. And a lot of times I find that if I'm saying I'm not good at something, but it's not an example of something that I'm just completely uninterested in, well, that's a sign that there's something holding me back and that I need to overcome it. I need to always remind myself that I can learn anything that I choose to be perseverant with. So when it comes to your music, let's take a few examples. So like getting a piece published, for example, you have to, if you have a finished piece of music, you have to submit it. And, there's the time involved with that. There's the discomfort of time. There's the discomfort of, reading through their procedures and making sure that you follow exactly each publisher's guidelines. Then there's the inevitable discomfort of rejection, because if you're not an established composer already with a publisher, you're probably going to get rejected more than half the time. So you have to decide, like, is being published something you really want to do? And if it is, you have to just keep putting yourself out there until you've tried everybody. And just know that the discomfort, and so how you embrace the discomfort in that is that you tell yourself, I'm getting this rejection letter because I took a chance and submitted my work. Because you wouldn't get the rejection letter if you just kept the PDF on your computer and didn't share it with anybody. Well, before you present it, you have to compose it. You have to take time to compose it, and you have to put it into your notation program, and you have to edit those files so that they look good, so the dynamics are in the right place, and you have your slurs in. And if it's an orchestral piece, you have to edit the parts as well, and that just takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, and you'll feel discomfort at all of that, at taking the time, at the effort. Sometimes, whether it's composing or whether it's playing the piano, there's a whole lot of sitting down involved, and that gets uncomfortable. But you embrace those moments so that you can continue writing the piece that you're going to try to publish. So when you're practicing something, again, there's the physical discomfort that can come if you play an instrument where you have to sit down. But there's also discomfort if you're playing an instrument where you have to stand. I'm kind of trying to think of what that might be, maybe percussionists. But I guess then you could just go sit down at a drum set or something like that. But, that reminds me, someone shared a meme on Facebook that said, all of y'all complaining about the heat have obviously never been to a summer band camp, and it shows. And that just brought back so many memories. Like when I was in high school, and this is in the early 90s, growing up in Florida in July. So just kind of picture what that feels like. Marching for hours a day, at least 4, I don't even remember what the schedule was. It was at least 4 hours outside. We didn't have access to the football field because the football players were using that field, but it was on asphalt. It was where the driver's ed practice parking course was. That was where we did our drills. And out there on the asphalt in July, and back in the early 90s, it's like no one told us that we should be drinking a lot of water. So we really didn't. None of us had water bottles. It's like we'd go inside, we'd drink from a water fountain, on our breaks, but it was probably very inadequate. We were probably very dehydrated at that age. But there's a whole lot of discomfort from that. And what allows you to embrace the discomfort in that situation is to knowing, well, I can complain about it, but all of these other people around me are doing the same thing. It's one of the reasons why, military service is so effective, for building discipline. It's because you're put into situations all the time, starting with boot camp, that are very uncomfortable, but you don't want to be the one who doesn't embrace the discomfort or gives in to it. So, there's some levels here. You can say, this is uncomfortable, I'm not going to do it. And then you can have what I think is very common for a lot of people, and that is, this is uncomfortable, but I can't do anything about it. I don't like it, but I'll do it. But what I'm trying to encourage you to do that will really make a difference in your life is to say, this is uncomfortable and I like it. I like being uncomfortable because I like what it means. It means that I'm growing. It means that I'm getting tougher. I really think that's a good thing in this time period. So another way that, I know this is a bit nonlinear. I'm going back off music just for a moment. When it's hot outside, I try to go outside every so often. I try not to always just put on the air conditioning when I'm in my car if it's, over 75 degrees. I try the windows first. So when you're learning music, you might be a music student listening to this. There's a lot of discomfort in facing how much you don't know right now. and facing the discomfort of trying to get better. But I tell you that the only way you can avoid that particular discomfort is to just not try. Not try to learn your instrument. And then you'll be like everyone else who doesn't play an instrument or doesn't play your instrument. They haven't tried. They haven't had to go through that discomfort. But all the successful musicians you know are the ones who have been willing to face the discomfort of having their ego put to the test, of saying, I should be better than this than I am. But it's the discomfort of saying, well, what does this mean? It just means I'm not good enough yet. I have things to learn. Now, once you make that statement, you can say, I don't like it, but I'm going to keep doing it. But tell yourself that you do like it. You like it because this is a normal part of the process, and I'm going to get better because I'm pushing myself. Okay, so just this has been a little bit longer of an episode than I thought it would be. But let me wrap up with 5 ways that you can embrace discomfort as a musician. So the first thing is to level up who you play with or who you compete against. So if you're entering competitions, that's where compete against comes in. Or if you're trying to win chair auditions for orchestras, this is an example of a competition. Or if you're, composer, playing with has to do with the ensemble. Now, a lot of times if you go to a public school, for example, you may not have, a whole lot of options. But when I was in high school, I never felt like I had to even practice to be one of the top players in the band every year. And it was just because I had an advantage of like more than a decade's worth of, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, not quite that much, but I had multiple years, like 6-7 years of experience with piano lessons. So I knew more about music than most people in band. So I didn't have to practice very much. I could get by on, my ear. I wasn't a great sight reader at the time, on the piano, but on horn, one staff at a time, I did pretty well. And the only time that I ever felt challenged was when I happened to make All-State and played with people who were very good. Then I felt that sense of pressure. And for a very long time in piano, I was the most advanced student that my teacher had. And I was always in situations where I just wasn't competing either for attention or for performance time or for accolades with competition that would push me. But you have to level up to give yourself that opportunity. I often think about like how sports relates to music. If you take an NFL team, every single person on that team, every single player, you could take the people who are on the bench. I guess there are some outliers, like Tom Brady. Tom Brady is kind of a famous outlier. But let's just say most people on an NFL team were the best players on their college team. And if you take an average, like kind of a big time college football team, someone like Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, even the people not starting, the people that are, second and third string, they were the best players in high school, and sometimes by quite a lot. And some of them get, and just like some of the people, who were excellent in college, they get to the NFL and they're like, I can't start here. Or they were awesome in high school and they get to a big college program and they're like, I'm not as good as these guys. I can't start here, at least not yet. And you can kind of take that back. Like with baseball, you can trace it back to Little League. So like I know someone who was very good at Little League pitching and was good in high school. And in my mind had the stuff to possibly be a major leaguer. Not that I knew much about what was really qualified for that. Well, it took several collegiate experiences where he found a place where he could be good, but he wasn't the best. And that's kind of where it ended, because if you're not the best in your college, you probably are not going to the minor league. And if you get to the minor league, if you're not the best there, you're not going to the major league. And then you think about it, you have to be the best in the minor league to get to the major league, and then you might be one of the worst players in the major league. So you have to embrace the discomfort of facing an honest evaluation of where you are in bigger picture perspectives. And this is especially tough if you've always succeeded in a small situation. So registering for summer camps, I know we're in the middle of summer right now, so, a little late for this year, but think about that in the future. But putting yourself out in competition. So again, leveling up who you play with or compete against. If you meet musicians who are really good, find reasons to get together and play. Find things that you can, play as duets, trios, quartets, or whatever. Okay, so that's the first way that you can embrace discomfort as a musician. Level up who you play with or who you compete against. Second is to learn and memorize a really hard piece. And for composers, you could change that, or compose a really big piece. So take that time, that discomfort, and stick with it. And of course, if it's really hard, that means you won't do it in 1 or 2 or 3 weeks. You might not do it in 1 or 2 months. It might be something that's going to take you all year. And that's something if you work on really hard. A third way that you can embrace discomfort as a musician is to learn and memorize a high volume of easier pieces. So yes, you take some easier pieces, but that you could learn in a week or 2, but you say, I'm going to learn and memorize 10 of them. Or if that seems easy, 15. Or if that seems easy, do 20. How many pieces can you learn and memorize in a year? Push yourself for that. And the composing equivalent is compose a lot of shorter pieces. Could you compose a piece a day for a month, or maybe 2 pieces a week for a month or 2 months? The fourth way to embrace discomfort as a musician is to frequently put yourself in opportunities where you could fail, but also succeed. So I'm not recommending that you put yourself in a situation where if you kind of look at the probability, you say you have like a 90% chance of failing and a 10% chance of succeeding. I'm not opposed to some stretch goals like that, but I just want you to think of maybe closer to 30-70, 40-60. And if you're not doing this at all, let's start with 50-50. There's a 50% chance you could succeed or fail. But push that to where you're really trying situations where it's like a 40% or 60% chance. Now, the exception of this is if these are opportunities where you are being paid. Maybe think of like 70-30 in favor of success, or 80-20. Something where you're going to have to work, you're going to have to put in the effort, but you want to come through. You want to do best, but you have to push yourself to get there. And then a fifth way that you can embrace discomfort is to take familiar pieces in your repertoire and find ways to make them harder. So some of the ways you could do that is you could transpose the key. If you're a pianist like myself and you the Prelude in C from Book 1 of the Well-Tempered Clavier by Bach, you feel like you could play that in your sleep. That's in C major. And try it in A flat major. Well, heck, just try it in G major first, but you'll feel uncomfortable right away. Another thing is take a piece and play it twice as fast as it should be, or as close as you can, or play it twice as slow. Sometimes that's uncomfortable. Improvise so that it's in a new style. So I kind of mentioned something there. If you come back and listen to this episode in maybe a few weeks from now, I will have gotten started on a series about the 4 core performance skills. So developing your 4 core skills is something that's going to regularly help you practice discomfort. That's going to be coming, I'm pretty sure that's going to start on episode 83. I've recorded the first episode of that series, and I just need to put some finishing touches on it and schedule it. So that is probably going to happen in a couple of weeks, but a little bit of a tease there. So if I was going to highlight one of those things, I would say the fourth one: frequently put yourself in opportunities to fail, but where you could also succeed. So the other thing is just when you're feeling really comfortable, just find ways to go make yourself uncomfortable. And, you embrace it, because it is a way that you are making yourself tougher. You are making yourself more resilient. And again, you're practicing the mindset of embracing discomfort, which is a mindset that will translate to your music, to your career. All right, so that's going to wrap up today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode at all, I would be very grateful if you would please share it to your social media, share it with a friend via text or email. If you're getting this podcast on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up. Not really a video, it's a static image with just my voice, but yeah, I think if you're on YouTube, you call it a video. Feel free to reach out by going to davidlanemusic.com, where you can, while you're there, you can make that davidlanemusic.com/toolkit, and you can check out all the episodes of this podcast, and also find, links to the major podcast apps where you can subscribe to this channel if you're not already. So anyways, that is going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll be back with you again next week.